Hey everyone, how are you guys doing? My name is Tammy Davis, and no, this is not a live recording today. I decided just to make a video because a couple of reasons. Whenever I do a live, I don't necessarily get a lot of people, and I always anticipate, hoping that more people would come in, and I'm concerned that I would actually get really distracted by trying to read what everybody's saying and then comment on that and then keep on track with what I'm trying to say. So, and which could go on and on. I mean, I've noticed a few people these days are doing live videos and they're like, I think I saw one woman yesterday, she did over almost 4 hours of live video, and I don't want to take up people's time like that. I just really am a big believer of just delivering the information and letting you get on with other things that creative opportunities at this point in our shelter in place or quarantine or wherever you are, lockdown. Please know my heart is with everyone. I know how stressful. I know the amount of anxiety that can come up around, especially if you've been laid off or out of work and you rely on your hours to be paid. So it's rough on all of us. So please know that I am with all of you, and I'm offering this information to I'm offering this information with the hopes of creating a shift from this point forward in the way we view health and how we approach health. So the title of this video is Wellness Precedes Health, and I will get into what that means. For those of you who are just joining or have never seen me before, just a little background. I have over 30 years. I actually began my career with aromatherapy and essential oils back in 1989. I learned from Robert Tisserand initially, who is responsible for introducing the English-speaking world through his translations of the original French books, aromatherapy. Um, I don't know. I don't speak French, but actually, it's Guy Fosse's book is the first book that Robert actually translated, and that was back in, I believe, 77 and 78 that it was introduced to the English-speaking world. So I met him not long after that, and then from there I met his colleague Kurt Schnaubelt, who is an organic and biochemist, and that's where I learned the bulk of my scientific aspect. I mean, everywhere we go, you glean what makes sense to you, right? I've taken classes. I actually went through the program of Institute of it, for Integrative Nutrition. And while many people take it and they run with it in certain directions, mine was understanding the chemistry of food. So chemistry is a very big deal for me. And so my background began in pharmacology. I have, like I said, I went through the entire program of Institute for Integrative Nutrition. I have studied under Robert Tisserand and Kurt Schnaubelt, and I have taken Kurt's work and I've expanded upon it given the world that we live in. My specialty is understanding plant constituents and their influence on human physiology as well as drug development. Now, the reason that's important is because the two worlds, well, they're supposed to work together and they don't when we approach it from the concept that we are right now, which is oils are safe. So when I say plant constituents, I'm an internationally certified master clinical aromatherapist. That was what my education is in, and everything that I talk about now is all scientifically backed, although it is many, many years of deep investigation, curiosity. Fortunately, I read a lot of mystery books when I was a child, so learning how to deduce and seek through questions is what I do. So this is a lot of profound investigation and pulling pieces together. I will challenge the current discussions like I did the other day with what makes COVID-19 so dangerous. That's a recent blog post. That blog applies to every health issue, just so you guys know, every single health issue. It's not just COVID-19. So, but I put that out there because currently we're looking at a virus that is creating a lot of complications in the respiratory system, But what I refer to in that applies to every single health issue, not just a virus. So go check it out. That link is in the description box below. But like I said, I make it a point. This is my specialty because my goal is to have the two worlds work together, not cancel one another out, not complicate matters. And that was the premise of what I really kind of started that video, why I did the video yesterday, which is based off of the widespread use, generalized use um, of essential oils, especially throughout the Amish community, but it's happening around the world. But my concern right now is the Amish because I work a lot with them. And the way they're being taught that these are just safe and you can use them for this and you can mix them with medications. No, no, please don't. This is the reason why, if you're not already there, I have aromatherapy as a lifestyle. Um, However, what I wanted to talk about, because that actually goes into a lot of what I'm saying here in a little bit more detail. It provides a lot of information, a lot of documentation. There's videos in that on why using oils is a good idea. However, it's important to know that we're not the same body. It's not the same world. Things are a lot different than they were hundreds of years ago. So we've got to begin to we've got to bring our understanding of these things, make it more contemporary. Yes, it's great that our ancestors used these things, lived by these things, left a lot of information for us to begin to investigate. However, today's context is that the body's defective and that we don't know why the body's doing what it's doing. It's a mystery, which in many respects it is. And at the same time, not so much if we can bring stability. If we can actually restore stability to the system, it's not as much of a mystery. Now, that said, for those of us who've been around the sun a few times, um, we can restore comfort. I won't go out on a limb and say we're going to get you over whatever it is you're dealing with. I can say that we can slow it down. Depending on your body, your wiring, you might be able to overcome something and actually, like cancer, we can get past cancer. I mean, there's certain things that we can get past. If it's an autoimmune disease specifically, I'd like to see remission. I'd like to see, halting the progression. I don't know about completely restoring the body, but it is possible if we come at it from a wellness perspective. So, a couple of things I want to address today is what wellness actually is and why we use oils with medications, why we need to be using oils with medications, when to use oils, when to use medications, and when not to. So, that's kind of what this is all about. So, first of all, wellness precedes health. We have this thing, right? We talk about health and wellness, health and wellness. Everywhere you look, I'm a health and wellness facilitator. I'm a health and wellness practitioner. Wellness precedes health, and wellness is what I feel like this message is of this particular virus. It's wellness, and we can kind of like try to underscore what that means by wellness, and whatever it means to one person, that's great. It's just like, one autoimmune disorder in one body, although it may have the same name in another body, isn't the same. So how one person recovers from the severity of their condition is determined by, number one, their wellness, and number two, their genetic wiring, because we're all uniquely wired. It's just the way it goes. We've been able to see this. Identical twins are generally born with, and when they've been able to prove this, their epigenomes are identical. If they're identical twins. And then as they grow and they have different temperaments, they have, different psyches. Their psychology is different. And again, so that affects their temperaments. And just that alone will begin to alter the epigenome. Of course, although they look identical, there are going to be slight variances within their epigenome. That's the reason why they're individuals. And what we've been able to document over decades is that although they start out essentially identical, as they age, these epigenomes go, they're worlds apart, worlds apart. One of the recent, it's been a few years now, identical twin sisters. I think it was in Brazil, somewhere in Brazil, possibly Peru, but I think it was Brazil. Anyway, they were from South America. Identical twins. They were They were 100 years old. They were celebrating their 100th birthday. One had led almost a virtually healthy life, never really had any significant health issues, no diagnosis of any kind. The other had had heart problems, had cancer. There was a lot of health issues. Again, identical epigenome in the beginning, completely different. And that, again, translates into different temperaments, different choices, different areas if you live apart. It's beliefs and, your beliefs and your behavior are what compound the way the epigenome works. So it's impossible, and I'm sorry to disappoint people or make upset people, but it's not possible to find a cure that is going to work with everyone for that very reason. However, the cure that you need does lie within your system. And this is, like I said, when I say cure, it's stopping the progression of whatever ails you, or at least very least slowing it down and restoring the quality of your health, where you're comfortable in your skin and able to continue moving forward with your life. And this is the reason why I strongly recommend including essential oils. Now, this said, it's really imperative that we begin to share this information with our children, begin to teach it. So, therefore, as adults, implementing these kinds of practices now and modeling for our kids, you can potentially offset, illnesses for their future because we're actually giving them something that's to their advantage as opposed to their demise. I'm not saying anything bad about pharmaceuticals. Keep in mind my background is in pharmacology. I firmly accept them and I understand their place in this world, and we're going to get into why that is. But as I mentioned, wellness precedes health. And what I mean by that is if we have ill thoughts about the world around us, for instance, somebody said to me yesterday, because I said we've got to learn how to come at this from love. To me, wellness denotes love, or love promotes wellness, because when we're actually coming at something from love, and I'm not talking about being goo goo gaga over something, I'm talking about being solid and embracing grace, coming from this space of grace, and looking at, we talk about the silver lining, right? We hear a lot about positivity. I did a radio show about that. Positivity is being positive is being confident. Okay, positivity isn't looking at a shitty situation and going, oh yeah, this is, we'll get through this, and just kind of trying to be upbeat about it. That's not positivity. I mean, unless you're confident that you're going to get through it, which, I mean, truthfully, everything moves forward. So if you can be confident that you're going to get through it, but don't put on a fake smile. Don't pretend to be happy when you're not, when you're irritated. And somebody said to me yesterday, well, I don't think love would have me smiling as life is shitting on me. And so I see this pandemic as that, with so many people losing their jobs and out of work, a lot of us are feeling this way. And we're disgruntled and discouraged. And, I really pray that we're not feeling hopeless given the circumstances. And so, again, this is where oils come in. However, wellness looks at this as, okay, so what can I glean from this? What's the nugget that I can take and run with it? How can I use this? How can I benefit from this? See, now we're getting into something that's a wellness perspective. So, I mean, the example I gave this person was, there's this thing called elephant coffee. I think that's what it's called. But at any rate, this coffee is produced. These elephants. I didn't do my research before I started this video. I actually used to know a little bit more about this than I do now, but the fact is that elephant coffee comes from the elephants consuming, I think, something, and they're consuming some kind of coffee bean, and um, and they're pooping it, and then people are digging through elephant dung to collect these coffee beans, and then they're roasting them, and then they're selling them, and they're selling them at a premium. So in a pile of shit, people are making money off of that, and people are paying it to boot. There's another example I have. Again, I don't remember. I think it might be argan oil, but I don't. I think it's some kind of oil. But to get to it, we need to be able to get the nut out of the fruit. And so these goats climb trees. They'll climb this tree and they'll eat the fruit, and then they poop the rest out. And because of the way it works, we're collecting these things and we're making oils out of them. I think that's the one too. So, but the point is that just because something doesn't go the way we think it should be going doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't mean it's life is going against us. It means it's something for us to grow from. And how can we harvest um, something useful out of it? It's really what this is. So that's wellness. And love will allow you to do that when you can realize when it's radical acceptance. Wellness is radical acceptance. And the moment we can step into, and look, this comes down to all health issues. I'm going there. When we can radically accept what is and accept it as a gift, regardless of our judgment. See, that's just it. We judge things as good and bad. But if we can just radically accept it for this is what I get right now, this is my offering. You know, acceptance means to receive life. So if we can just receive life as is, as it's being presented to us, yeah, we're going to have emotions, but get through the emotions and then come back to this. That's wellness. The more we can do that, the more we are actually taking steps to stabilizing, because we're stabilizing our reactions at that point. We're actually coming at this with a more of a thoughtful response. That alone will begin to reset the system. That's significant given the fact the amount of degenerative health cases that we have on this planet. And I'm not even talking virus. But if we really want to see a shift in our health, we've got to first shift our wellness mindset. If we want to walk around and complain about the drivers, we want to walk around, and look, I get it. There's a lot of I'm just trying to come. The first word that comes to mind. There's a lot of stupid behavior. There's a lot of irresponsible behavior going on. I'm sorry. There just really, really is. So see, I'm just like you. I'm not perfect. I look at something when somebody walks in, and I had somebody sneeze on me at one point last week, and a few days later, I had just got off. And if you watched the last video, you heard me say this. I had a really horrible sore throat, and I'm currently staying with my father-in-law who has COPD and was just released from the hospital with congestive heart failure and pneumonia. Do I want him infected? No, but some woman decided to turn around and sneeze right at me. Now, it was weird. And so there's a lot of conflicting stories. What I do know is that viruses are passed through aerosols. I was listening to something on the news. They had the news on last night. And now there's this one doctor was like, oh, it's just on the hands. It's transmitted by the hands. Well, how did it get on my hands? Okay. How did it get from my hand to the grocery cart? Well, I mean, people aren't coughing. I've just seen people just blatantly cough and sneeze into the middle of the aisle. Um, so I realize people are also using a lot of the Sandy wipes on the carts. So if it's getting from, I'm touching something because I'm not touching people, so I'm touching something for it to have gotten. So viruses are transmitted through, yes, through hands, dirty hands, and touching our faces, and sticking our fingers in different places, but it's also through coughs and sneezes. I mean, just an exhalation carries aerosol. I think that the estimation is about 3 feet. And so now if you have projectile aerosols with coughing and sneezing, it's going to go even further and it's going to be more intense. And so my suggestion for precaution is understand that it's not just transmitted through hands. It's transmitted just like any other cold or flu, because the cold or flu is also a form of coronavirus. So I went off on a tangent, but the point is that a wellness mindset, yeah, we have irritations. You know, my son was telling me that somebody walked in, I guess it was in Phoenix, walked in and coughed all over the produce. I saw one guy licking tops of containers. I mean, it's just like, I'm in shock, but I'm not going to allow that shock. I mean, that's where it stops. You know, I don't walk. I'm not mad at them. I'm in. I'm in like wondering what got into you, but it's really none of my business. But I'm just as human as you are. So the whole point of this is like, can we begin to shake it off, get back to center, and do what we can to harvest something that's beneficial out of a what we consider to be a bad situation or a difficult situation. How can this situation benefit us? And so in that moment, we are beginning to create profound shifts within our system, because the truth is that stress is the root of all of it. The stress response, more specifically, is the root of all health issues, right down to these viruses. If you don't know what I'm talking about, please go read my blog. Why is COVID? Gosh, why is COVID-19 so dangerous? Because again, that applies not just to this particular virus, but it applies to all health issues. The underlying tone of that explains a lot. And the bottom line comes down to stress. And like I talked about it in yesterday's video, the stress response, it's not a single chemical. It's a series of chemicals being produced. So the moment that we don't have any control over the environment, you guys. We don't. We don't want to, we just don't. And truthfully, if we were to eliminate 45 million man-made chemicals and stop production, stop using them, and everything, this world it would be a catastrophe. We're going to have to work at this. In the meantime, it's not hopeless. It sounds like a horror story. It's just a mystery. Yes, I know mysteries can be scary or potentially alarming, but it's just a mystery. And so the truth is, if we can get to wellness is our truth. And we can begin to redirect our thoughts, we can redirect our emotions, or manage our emotions, and then come back to center and understand that this is all for our highest good. And how can we benefit from this? You have just redirected your mind and your emotions, and you've begun the steps to help restore stability to the hormonal system, which is essential for good health. This is the reason why essential oils are necessary. Because a lot of these activations are a lot of, chronic. I mean, because look, if I've said it before and I'll say it again, degenerative diseases are not hereditary. I don't care how many doctors you go to and you sit there and they want to know your family history of this, that, or the other. It's not hereditary. Now, your underlying genome, the one that gives you your hair color and your eye shape and your finger shape and, and all in your bone structure, there might be some tweaking in there, but the bottom line is these degenerative diseases are not hereditary. High blood pressure, not hereditary. Glaucoma, not hereditary. MS, not hereditary. It doesn't make any difference if you have been diagnosed with something and nobody else in your family's ever had it. It's not hereditary. What's hereditary, what's passed on from generation to generation, is beliefs, meaning your thought patterns, and your behaviors. your reactions to those beliefs. And when we are out of, when the thing is like, how, my question for you right now is where you sit, how is this in, what is it that you really want out of life? I mean, really want, and what choices did you make that throughout your time here were technically not in alignment with what it is you wanted? They were in alignment with a belief system. For instance, well, I wanted to be an artist, but we all know of starving artists, right? So your choices were to do something else, and you never believed that you could do it, that you could accomplish it. Now, I know there's a lot of arguments that I can hear them already that go around, well, I'm not good enough, or I need to develop my skills, or. But keep in mind, although you may not be thinking poorly of your work, although you may not be thinking that, unconsciously thinking about it, these stories run your show. So your show is being directed by these underlying beliefs. And so your choices then are directed by those belief systems. So although you say, I want this out here, but I can't have that, guess what you just did? You just 86'd that for the time being. So this is a good chance to, and that, you guys, causes stress. That'll cause a great deal of stress in the body. So beginning to look at where you've been out of alignment up until this point with what it is you want, and beginning to make choices that are in alignment with your desires. Now you are on to target for restoring your health, because that is another component to wellness, by checking out your alignments. How is this situation? And I realize that nobody could have predicted this. We're all sitting here in the same situation. I've been able to do it. I've been able to, um, I'm going to be really honest right now. I first got here and I was pissed. I was angry because I didn't want to leave New Mexico. I got 2 kids back there. I have a grandson, brand new grandson back there. Actually, I've got 3 kids back there. Pardon me. My daughter's in southern New Mexico. I've got 2 boys in central New Mexico. And my daughter has 3 children. My one son now has a newborn. They're all there. And I am almost 2,000 miles away from them in a place that it's pretty and green, but I don't deal with the heat and humidity. It's just not my bag. So the first thing I thought of was, I'm running home, going home. But the longer, now that, but somebody else needed my help. So I came here to help. And the interesting component to that is the more I'm away and I just reflect on what it is I want in my life, I can honestly tell you that for as beautiful as New Mexico is, and I've seen plenty of people go there and visit and just, they just love the mountains and they just love the funkiness and they just like love it, love it, love it, love it. It's dry and I can't deal with the mud when it rains. It's, that sounds probably really silly, but even if I just were to not qualify anything and just go, yeah, I've been there a long, long time, and it's not what I want. So the benefit to me being here, kind of being extracted from that situation, and this could apply to a job, this could apply to a relationship, this can apply to anything, but having everything kind of come to a complete stop and just being honest about what makes sense for me, what resonates with me. I can begin to see a different direction for me now. It even has impacted the way I speak about the work that I do, because I really do want to reach a lot of people. I really do believe that we're on the cutting edge of needing to approach health in a very different way. Again, when I heard the talk on the news the other night by Dr. Fauci with regards to not knowing why certain people are dying from this, or what's actually causing it, that's the reason why I wrote that last piece. What makes it so dangerous? Because they really do know. He's an immunologist. And the information that I wrote, I was able to pull together for that blog post came right out of the National Institute of Health and Immunology, which is where he works. So there's something to be said for what is going on, and I'm here to offer, not to pick on people, but just to be like, well, wait a minute, this isn't what we need to hear. So wellness really is about shifting our thought processes, changing our behaviors in a way that are actually in alignment with what we want, which brings me to the use of medications and oils. Years ago, when I was working in dentistry, and people would go in and have their teeth cleaned, and they would come out, and and they would have their teeth charted and everything, and they'd come out for um, they were in need of treatment, or additional treatment, dentistry or dental work. But I was the one that was responsible for letting them know what was being recommended and the best way to go about getting it. Well, I was notorious for asking, and I used to get in trouble with the doctor because I'd ask before we go any further, I have one question for you, and that is, how do you see yourself dying? Now, I didn't just pause, I paused, but I did finish that sentence. With your real teeth or with fake teeth? What do you see in your future as far as your teeth are concerned? And it used to just shock people that I would even think about that. But the whole point is, it goes back to alignment. If what you want is your natural teeth for the rest of your life, then it's time to make decisions that will honor that goal. And there are ways to get there. That was one of the biggest problems that I've faced with patients, is that they would be given a plan, and then I'd hear, oh, I can't afford it. I can't do that. Well, there are interim steps that can be made. However, your home care will dictate what your fears. It'll actually reveal your fears versus your commitment. So again, we're back to wellness and good health. Your commitment to what you want is essential, and if what you want is to have dentures, then go for it. There's nothing wrong with it if that's what you want. If that makes more sense to you, if that's if that's yeah, if that works for you, then do it. But don't stress yourself out about saying I want one thing, and then in the meantime, struggling to make it happen because you doubt and you worry. Just be confident in what you want and make it happen. Now, when it comes to medications and oils, I will say, there's a couple of things about that. The difference between medication and an essential oil is that a medication is very specific in its mechanism of action, and there's not a synergistic relationship between the chemicals, meaning the chemicals don't interact with one another. They are very specific in the way they interact within the body. Okay? And if you affect one genetic receptor, it's going to create a change in another genetic receptor down the line. This is not just a single, we're gonna control that chemical and the rest of the body will be okay. That's not the case. The body is naturally adapting every second of every day. So a medication is very specific in its actions. You can live with medications, and but you have to know what your goal is. If your goal is to survive, then stick with medications. If your goal is to thrive, then you want to add oils that are very specific to the types of medications that you're using. You cannot just go out and randomly just select an oil or just come out of a book because it says it's good for that. This is happening way too much. And this is where I want to see this begin to change, because they are very, very beneficial to us. They do not take the place of medication ever. The only time you want to use them in place of medication are things like fever, things like thinning out the mucus. I mean, you can do that with oils. Now, if you get into the COVID-19 and it's severe and you've got really rough congestion, go to the doctor. Just go to the doctor, do what your doctor says, and once you're released, then go back to using oils. But please, whatever you do, don't disregard a physician's advice, because Somebody's out there telling you that oils work for that. So if the condition is severe enough or warrants medications, please go for the medications, because the medications are far more concentrated than an oil could ever be. You'd have to there's no telling how much you would I mean, there's just no telling. And besides that, there's a synergistic value to it, meaning that the chemicals and the oil actually interact with one another, and there's no way of predicting how that particular oil is going to work in the body. This is one big reason why oils are not regularly recommended for any health issue, because we don't know how they're going to influence any health in any individual. So we may have an idea, and they're not going to now, if you don't have any symptoms that are indicating that you've got a severe health issue, then by all means begin to include oils. Just don't stick with any one particular one or any few for long term. You want to switch them out every 4 to 6 weeks at the very least. And again, go to Aromatherapy is a Lifestyle. That link is in the box below. Please join the group, ask questions, and learn how these oils actually work. This is not the place for me to be getting into all of that. That's a lot of material in that group. And so the other aspect to this is, again, like I said, medications, there's a good reason for medications. You don't want to step away from medications, especially if you're demonstrating. Now, if you've lived, again, if you've been around the sun for a few times, and you're showing signs of a potential health issue, medications are probably, I mean, if we're talking like high blood pressure, don't try to go use an oil to lower your blood pressure unless you're just borderline. The request is to learn that these two fields actually work together. And so, no, I haven't sold out to anything. This is just real. This is just absolutely real. I do believe in using oils. If you've been clinically diagnosed with depression, please get on an antidepressant. Please do yourself a favor. If you've been clinically diagnosed with, anxiety and panic attacks, please get on the medication. There are ways to include oils that'll eventually help you work your way down, but at least help stabilize your mind, because your mind, the neurochemistry, influences every physical aspect of your body. All the processes are regulated by hormones. That's another thing that I wrote in that piece. It's like we have at least 50 hormones, and they're still just uncovering more. So, and that comes from the mind. Again, another argument for why wellness is the key to health, to good health. Because the more we can regulate our mind, the more we can influence positive, good health. I almost slipped and said positive, but good health. So, again, if what you're wanting to do is survive, and all you want to, if your vision for yourself as you age and are is being, whatever it is, if you don't see oils in that, that's fine. But just keep in mind that medications will help you survive. If you want to thrive and you want to offset side effects and you want to prevent further breakdown in the body, because remember, medications are very specific in their action, and they're constantly flipping other switches off or on depending on what's going on, additional health issues will arise. This is the reason why we see high blood pressure, diabetes. This is the reason why we see high cholesterol and diabetes. There's a reason. And so if thriving is on your agenda from this point forward, then begin to include oils. There was one thought I had, and it just has escaped me, with regards to oils and good health. I guess the one thing I wanted to say, I hate when I do that, when I blank out and I get on a roll on something else. They just don't mix well with medications. You've got to really know what you're doing with medications. And as I said, there is a way to include them with medications and work your way off of them. I was going to say, as far as being able to prevent disease, or this is why it's really good for our children. Okay, and again, what makes COVID-19 so dangerous, that blog, I really encourage you to read it because it does apply to virtually every, I'm going to say it applies to every degenerative disease. I don't know if you know this or not, but Gary Young of Young Living actually died a year and a half ago from a series of strokes. Strokes develop or occur due to nitric oxide synthase issues. That is addressed heavily in that blog post. And yes, oils could have helped that. And I'm pretty sure he probably was taking medications, maybe not, but learning how to integrate them is really where it's at right now. I'm not saying that they are the answer to everything. What I am saying is they are a beautiful adjunct. And it's time that we realize what holistic health really is. And it's relying on the systems that we have available to us. It's not just natural remedies because natural is not always safe. So, with that said, I have now gone longer than I have in a long time. So, I'm going to leave you with that information. Please let me know if you have any questions. Visit my website, synergessence.com. That link is in the box below. Sign up for my email list. Please share, subscribe, and let me know what questions you may have. All right. Thanks, you guys. Take care and be well.